It's the town of Houffalize, a village really. Now you can imagine a place like this receiving 1,200 tons of bombs, what it's going to do. Even from here I think one can imagine how important it was as a crossroads. And you can see why the destruction happened. But something to see places like this, and same with La Roche. You think, well, couldn't they have been sort of bypassed or attacked in a different way or whatever? But the destruction here was due to the fact that the Bulge was pushed back in rather than attack the sides, which is somehow sort of more conventional military doctrine. But I realised why it wasn't possible because of the terrain involved. This is Houffalize, and here we find this Panther G Tank. It's, I would say, arguably one of the most successful tanks of the Second World War per se, and certainly an excellent weapon on the Eastern Front, but in the forested areas such as here, it's really not within its element at all. Another problem is with the construction. For example, if they're just stuck to doing Panzer IVs, then it might have been more successful in terms of quantity. But as far as quality goes, it's certainly very good on the Eastern Front, which brings me to the same questions I ask all the time. Why did the Battle of Bulge take place? In my opinion, the sort of pretext that Hitler used to split the American and British allies doesn't really, it's really grasping at straws. On the other hand, had this force been used in the East, then it might have stopped the Soviet Union. Now this tank itself was found in a river, and it was pulled out the river in 1948. Well, I suspect it's been here ever since. We don't often see such well preserved military vehicles as this one. And I get a view of Houffalize. This is the cemetery at Houffalize, and we'll have a quick look at the war graves here. We've got 10 graves, all of which are Royal Air Force or from New Zealand or Australia. Now, they all died on the same day, which was the 6th of January 1945. Houffalize was pounded. Approximately 1,200 tons of bombs were thrown against this town because it was a communications hub. The same as Saint-Vite, same as La Roche on Ardenne, and in the case of La Roche it was to destroy the bridge there. So the point of destroying the communications hubs is, well, it's pretty clear really, because there was so little room here for the heavy equipment that the Wehrmacht were using to move around in. So that happened in January as the Bulge was in fact being flattened, and here we have 10 victims of that. I'm going to walk a little bit further up because there's another grave I want to point out, which is the grave of the first French soldier who was killed in Belgium in the First World War. Now, he was born in 1889. In fact, he was only a couple of months older than Hitler. He came from a German family who'd settled here. His parents settled here some 20 years or so earlier. And he he still had German nationality, as I understand it. The family, when he was born, the family only became French in 1890. And he came here, he was here on the 7th of August 1914. He took part in a shooting, and he was killed. And this is where he has been laid to rest, but the grave itself is actually maintained by a school. The reason I brought out that with Hitler is actually to compare the ages of the people and what they actually did. So 1889, he felt so strongly that he went to the army. I don't know if he was a volunteer, if he was he couldn't have been conscripted because it was too quick, and he could have been professional. I don't know. But those that were normally conscripted for the war came later, or those that volunteered for it as well also were a little bit later. And I'm going to use Hitler as an example. He turned up around October 1914 on the front line. So this is Houffalize, and I'm obviously on the Battle of the Bulge tour rather than the First World War, but I wanted to point that one out whilst I'm here.